Hello, welcome back to my Thoughtful Thursdays video channel where we take a look at important topics both inside and outside the church. As always, please make sure that you are subscribed and turn your notifications down below to make sure that you see more videos like these in the future. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you. I'm super thankful today for my Bernie mittens, which are keeping my fingers nice and toasty warm right now while I'm talking to you. I hope that wherever you are surrounded by people that love you and that you are warm. This week, I'm excited to be diving into one of our national treasures right here in the United States. That's right, the one, the only, Dolly Parton. Some people that watch this channel might be thinking, that's a very strange topic to be talking about on Thoughtful Thursdays. Well, I picked this topic because I think that Dolly Parton is an example of someone who has grown, someone who has chosen to learn, who has changed her life and her decisions to meet the new information that she was given. She has evolved as a person. Were it that more people were like Dolly Parton. In today's society, I always want to lift that up. And let's be honest, the background that Dolly comes from was not a good one. She grew up in abject poverty. She was one of 12 kids. They lived in this tiny cabin. I can't honestly imagine 12 kids living in that cabin, let alone with adults. She grew up deep in the heart of Tennessee in the Appalachian Mountains to a poor farming community. Her father was a sharecropper before later having a tobacco farm of his own. When most people, including myself, think about people that grew up in the Appalachian Mountains in abject poverty, there's a certain stereotype that comes to mind. And Dolly goes to show us that stereotypes are just that, stereotypes. Dolly embodies the fact that people who come from places where the Confederate flag still proudly flies in front of most houses can actually grow and learn. People can change, people can learn, they can grow, and they can do better. I don't know of anyone that thinks of that area of the country during that time that Dolly was growing up and thinks like, wow, boy, I bet it was such an inclusive place to grow up in. It was probably really nice for the black kids, the gay kids, and the trans youth. They surely didn't have any issues. No, I think the opposite was much more the norm. And Dolly Parton rose up out of that. Dolly showed us all as a country that we don't have to hold on to these deep beliefs that have been instilled in us by our family, by the culture that surrounds us, or by our faith. I've heard so many other people, well, this is just the way that I was brought up. This is just the way that I was taught. I can't help it. Yes, you can. You can be a decent person and you can grow. And Dolly has chosen to stay out of politics, which of course makes both sides of the aisle feel like Dolly is on their side. Maybe she is, I don't know. I think we have to let Dolly's actions speak for themselves though. Dolly definitely isn't a Republican or a Democrat. She's, well, Dolly. She has been led by compassion and she has this deep drive for justice and for doing the right thing at the right time. She wants to make the world a better place and always fights for equality, and I love that about her. And I want to say this right now, Dolly has not been a perfect human being. She's made mistakes in the past, especially when it comes to things that I am passionate about and I talk about on this very channel. However, she has always strived to make things right, to make things better, which I love and I honor and I highly respect. Dolly is a woman of faith. She grew up in the church, in her grandpa's mountain church. She grew up singing hymns. That's how she learned and started to play the guitar. She has never shied away from her faith, which is something that I love, but she also doesn't use faith as a weapon to hurt other people. She doesn't hide from her faith, yet at the same time, she is one of the least bigoted people that I've ever seen. She truly lives out the Bible verse of judge not lest ye be judged, and I love that about her. And boy, oh boy, have people critiqued Dolly over the years, over her looks, over her aesthetics. People have called her a dumb blonde. People look at her and they don't understand her, the wigs, the makeup, her embellishments, and people can honestly just be really cruel and nasty. And Dolly responds to that. She said this in an interview. People used to say, Dolly, you'd be taken a lot more seriously as a singer-songwriter if you didn't look like a whore or if you didn't dress up and look like a prostitute. Once again, probably good Christian folks telling Dolly that she looked like a whore because those good Christians just have to speak the truth in love, don't they? Oh, I just threw up a little in my mouth. And by the way, I don't even like that word that I just used, nor do I feel comfortable saying it to you. I'm just saying it out loud because Dolly used it. However, Dolly responded back to the type of people who think like that. I said, well, you know what? The way that I look comes from a very serious place. It comes from a girl's idea of glamour. And I figure if people are so shallow they can't see beyond that, that's fine. Zing! She's full of amazing one-liners like that. She always has a way of taking people's hatred and bigotry and somehow turning it back on them. It's like the ultimate judo move. One of my favorite things about Dolly, especially as a person of faith, is her unflinching support of the LGBTQIA+ community. She was supporting AIDS research when it was not popular to do so. She was also an early supporter of gay marriage and transgender rights. She even wrote a very specific song for the movie Transamerica 15 years ago, which of course got her a lot of hate mail. Dolly has been a strong supporter of feminism for a very long time, and she has a love-hate relationship with that word feminism. She at times has told people that she doesn't like the label feminist, and yet she has also told Time magazine that she is a feminist. Well, let's just, call a spade a spade. I used to have a friend who would say, how do you know whether you're a pastor or not? Well, you look behind you and see if people are following you. The word pastor isn't just a label, it's a lifestyle. It's something you do. It's the same for a feminist. How do we know if Dolly Parton is a feminist? Well, because she supports equal rights for all women, and she's really, really, really vocal about it. She also supports equal pay for women. In fact, Dolly went out to lunch once with Gail Berman, an executive producer for television, and just in a casual conversation, Berman let out the fact that she was not paid equally the same amount as her male counterparts. And Dolly did what Dolly does in her typical fashion, and she got out her checkbook and wrote a check for the difference in the pay. I love that. Here are a few other things I love about her. Dolly helped to fund the Moderna vaccine. Today is Thanksgiving. I am super thankful for Dolly Parton, for vaccines, and for Bernie gloves. And another fun fact, Dolly Parton was a non-credited executive producer for the television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That's right, most people don't know that, but I'm a massive Buffy fan. Yes, that's right, Dolly Parton had her hand in the making of one of the greatest shows about female empowerment ever made, and she was uncredited for her work and her support. Now, one might think that growing up in the Deep South, in the Appalachian Mountains, that Dolly would carry with her hints of racism. And she has not been perfect on this, but she is growing. Dolly Parton used to have an attraction at Dollywood called the Dixie Stampede. Now, that word Dixie is problematic at the least, and it's very hurtful to some people. It has obvious ties to segregation and to white supremacy. Heck, even the song Dixie was used in the score of Birth of a Nation, which was a film that helped to give new life to the Ku Klux Klan. Dolly isn't perfect. However, when she was told that her attraction was hurting people, she didn't get defensive. She didn't make a huge fuss about it and throw a temper tantrum. She didn't talk about the political correctness police or how you can't say anything anymore. Nope. She did what a decent human being does. She thought about it, she learned, she grew, and she changed the name. And the racists hated that because they really wanted for people to longingly remember the days of Dixie. But we loved it, Dolly, back when we owned people. We loved it when white people reigned supreme. And Dolly was like, nope. And she said, and I quote, "As soon as you realize that something is a problem, you fix it. Don't be a dumbass. That's where my heart is. I would never dream of hurting anybody on purpose." And that statement made people really, really mad because by golly, they really want to be able to hurt as many people with those words as possible. She learned, she grew, she adapted. She isn't perfect. She has made mistakes, but she learned and changed when given new information. Something that our country needs to learn from her right now more than ever. Likewise, Dolly has expressed support for Black Lives Matter, stating, and I quote, "Of course Black Lives Matter. Do we think our little white asses are the only ones that matter? No." Now that's not the only thing she said on the matter, and racists and haters love to point out, but that isn't the end of the quote. That isn't all she said. Later on, she said that everybody matters. And then they want to make a connection. See? All lives matter. But in our country, we have time and time again shown through our treatment of Black lives that their lives just don't matter quite as much. It's the knee-jerk reaction upon hearing Black Lives Matter that's the problem at hand. White people somehow hear that to mean that we are saying that Black lives matter more than white lives. Because of course you can't talk about another group or lift another group up without talking about white people too. What about us? Yet when asked about Black Lives Matter, Dolly does not have that knee-jerk reaction. Of course Black Lives Matter. The last accomplishment that I'm super proud of Dolly for is her reading initiative. Over 100 million books books have been given to children under the age of 5. Hundreds of thousands of kids have learned how to read from books from Dolly Parton. As a teacher, literacy is a big issue in terms of equality. Dolly, from the bottom of my heart, we love you and we think you are a national treasure. Oh yes, and we love your music too. I didn't even have time for that. 9 to 5, Jolene, I Will Always Love You, Here You Come Again. So many amazing songs. Friends, that's all the time we have this week. Join me back here next week as we take a look at my thoughts on the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict. I have some thoughts. Happy Thanksgiving. I'll see you back here next week. Same time, same place.